All right, so I'll start off with my big lie because the headline said 3,000, and then I checked like last night while I was making this presentation, and there's actually only 1,800. And I think it was like literally I looked at a data set a long time ago, and like I had doubled something in one of my output CSVs, and I screwed up. So anyway, there's 1,800, not 3,000. Sorry about that. So my name's Chris Whong. What am I? I don't know. I'm a Civic hacker, I guess. I think it says Civic hacker OG because I was trying to be funny when I submitted the talk. But yeah, I used to actually I was one of the back in like 2013. I was a co-organizer of BetaNYC. I used to host the meetups. Any of you have been around that long? Always interested. I've also worked in city government, so I spent 3 years working at city planning. Built a lot of very, very powerful, very useful mostly map-related planning tools. So if you've heard of Zola, it was my team that rebuilt Zola in 2016. Worked for the company that runs the New York City Open Data Portal. Worked for lots of different data and tech data startups. But the common thread with all this has been planning and tech. So right now I'm a developer evangelist at Mapbox. So Mapbox is a mapping platform. The software, I use our software to build this app. But you know, whenever I find something interesting to work on, it's probably going to be related to New York City or urban planning data. And I want to tell you the story basically because I had no plans to do this. It just kind of evolved, and I want to tell you the story of how this came to be and where I hope it goes because it's brand new. Okay, so NYC Public Space, it's now actually live. It's been launched in January for iOS and Android. I built it last fall, and I just kind of kept going with it. And I was like, you know what? I think maybe I could turn this into like an actual app, and let's see if that sounds like it would be fun. So let's see if we can figure it out. I checked last night. There's been 3,000 Android downloads and 5,000 iOS downloads, which is pretty cool, but only like 200 registered users. So most of those people aren't signing up, which I guess is what I would have expected. And lastly, most importantly, I don't have time for this. And this is going to be a recurring thread, is that like this has been like a side project that's kind of gotten legs, and I don't have time for this. So it's been really interesting to try and squeeze in time and build features, but like I'm definitely not able to keep up with the stuff people are interested in. Okay, so types of public spaces. So in the app, you'll find these 6 icons, and then one is parks, which you're all familiar with. That's most of the data set. Then we have street plazas, POPs, which are privately owned public space, waterfront public access areas, which is one of those obscure types that I had to work at the Department of City Planning to learn exist, but they are a thing, and I've been to many of them and didn't know it. Schoolyards to playgrounds is another big one that's got hundreds of sites. And then miscellaneous is a catch-all for everything else, which includes national parks, state parks, things that exist through various other policies that aren't necessarily connected to a specific agency. So FYI, so parks is about 1,500 spaces, so about 83% of the data set. The data is pretty darn good, but includes a lot of things that I don't know if I would immediately say are public space or maybe not notable enough for me to want to find in an app, right? So there's lots of things like community gardens. There's lots of things like fenced in triangles with lots of shrubberies, but like you can't go in them. They're just there. So are those public space? I mean, technically yes, but like they're not a destination and they're not something you could really use, maybe. Street plazas are another kind of interesting animal because there's like an official plaza program. It's, you know, the best you can get is like either a PDF of a spreadsheet or maybe the spreadsheet itself. You know, there's lots of these triangles, you know, kind of disused areas of the roadway that like nobody can, that people are using as public space, but they're not officially part of the plaza program. So what are they? So there's a lot of ambiguous things going on with street plazas, but check them out in the app if you want to. POPs are probably the most interesting one to me because I used to work at the Department of City Planning, where city planning is the agency that wills these POPs into existence, not wills, but negotiates these POPs into existence when somebody wants to develop a property. So for those that don't know, this is basically a trade-off of you can build a bigger building as long as you set aside a chunk of the land for public use. And the idea is that is supposed to become new public space, forever. But the reality is a lot of them are just kind of neglected. put off to the side. A lot of times they're actually abused, and there's been stories about parking cars on them and things like that. But there's a great web map that exists already that shows these things. But I was really fascinated with them when I worked at city planning. One, because I knew we had data for them, but we weren't publishing it, which was really interesting to me. And also because I wanted to I guess every resource I had that listed them was never where I wanted it when I wanted it. And that's kind of where this app came from, was just that I want to pull out my phone and I don't want to remember the website that I could go to. The website is probably not mobile friendly anyway, so I'm going to have a hard time kind of looking around to see where I am. And like modern web maps and modern mobile maps will just tell you where you are and zoom in on you and then show you stuff that's nearby. And that's kind of the simplest premise for like what I wanted to do with this app. Waterfront public access areas. So this one is, what did I show? Sorry. This one is the Whole Foods and Gowanus. So waterfront public access areas are not quite the same as POPs, but it's actually a requirement. So if you're developing property that is on the waterfront, and Gowanus Canal counts, if you're building property that is on the waterfront, you have to, as part of the rules, that you have to set aside public space. So it's very similar. They end up being the similar kinds of public spaces that get developed, but they're all on the waterfront and they are required. So this is the one that wraps around the Gowanus Whole Foods. Sort of same problems of like, some of these things are just not really well taken care of. They don't have good lighting. The seating is falling apart. But some of them are great and some of them are really well maintained. I had to work at city planning to know that this was even a thing. And like, what's interesting about POPs have like a logo and kind of similar signage that you'll find on each one, but waterfront public access areas don't really have that, and you won't even know you're on one. Schoolyards to playgrounds. This one was really interesting too, because I didn't know about this until a student of mine at NYU, where I teach web mapping for planners, and they did one of their projects about the Schoolyards to Playgrounds program, and I was just like, whoa, that's cool. I didn't even know that existed. And my kid goes to a school that has one of these, and she had been there for a couple of years, and I still didn't know it was part of this program. It was really interesting. But there's an obscure sign that's like over in the corner that explains it. That's the sign. And like, if I didn't go read that, I wouldn't have known. Like, you can walk by a space and it's open and unlocked. If there's people in there, you might feel invited to come in, but it's like, how do you know that this is like, I have a right to use this space? So that's kind of another thing I'm trying to tackle with this project. So this is really interesting. There's actually almost 290 of these things. And then lastly, the miscellaneous column is, like I said, everything else. National parks, state managed parks. Like, this is Hudson River Park, which is actually like 20 different parks all strung together, of course. Brooklyn Bridge Park is one of these. And then there's lots of these little triangles that aren't plazas. Like I said, I've been categorizing these and they go either way. So you might find some of them listed as street plazas and some of them just listed as miscellaneous. Okay, but why? So I show this picture because this is something called the capital planning. We used to call it the capital planning platform. Now it's called Capital Planning Explorer. This was the first thing I built when I worked at the Department of City Planning. It was the goal was to be a consolidated map of every like city regulated space in the entire city, which basically meant we were consuming like a bunch of data sets and just vomiting them onto a map. Somebody out there found it useful, but it definitely wasn't useful to like a normal like average citizen who wanted to find anything. But I think it was mildly useful to like government employees who were doing analysis of programs and things like that. But I remember under parks, gardens, and historical sites, having like a huge set of meetings and debate around whether we could add privately owned public spaces to the dots that fell under this category. And it became this big like contentious like thing with the management at city planning, because yeah, apparently they were like, we have this data set, but it was collected in collaboration with a researcher and he doesn't want it shared and blah, blah, blah. And I always thought that was so stupid. So anyway, I built that and I've always just been wondering like, okay, why can't we put privately owned public space in here? And at the same time, it was like, okay, well, there's all kinds of other public spaces that don't fit into any of these like official data sets that we've gathered from all these other agencies. And, it comes down to this kind of concept of, government needs versus like people needs. And, taking kind of building on all of this background, I was able to say, okay, I want to build something that like average New Yorker can actually use to just find what's near them and pull it out of their pocket instead of all this kind of mumbo jumbo about, different program sites and things like that. Same thing. So the team that I led at City Planning built this waterfront public access map. And these are those waterfront access spaces that I told you about that like nobody knows about. And they had this great idea of like, we'll build a web map to like bring these out into the world. It's great. Like a web map is great for it, but it's kind of the same problem. Is just that like nobody cares just about the waterfront space. They care about all of it. They care about what's near them right now or where they can take their kids to play or that sort of thing. So I love building this map and like bringing this new data set to the world. It even had like pictures and amenities and things like that. But again, it was web-based, you know, wouldn't be there when you need it, like to try and find what's near you. So interesting, but didn't solve the problem. This one is the Municipal Art Society POPs map. So this is, I think, the same researcher who ended up initially indexing these. He wrote a book about it. I guess manages this website, and it tries to have similar functionality where you can like submit a profile or submit a review of these things. Web-based, not very well mobile friendly. So I have used this many times just walking around New York and wondering if there's POPs nearby. But basically the simplest reason for me building my app was to like do something that was a little easier to use than this and into a native mobile app. Schoolyards to playgrounds, this is what you get, right? If you want to find one near you, it's really interesting. So there's a landing page on the Parks Department website. Talks about the program and how awesome it is. And then it's like, find one near me, and you click on it and you like literally you get this. And you're like, okay, so maybe I can see, you know, so you know, we're not, it's like they tried to put the information out, but like putting it out in a way that's actually useful to people, this ain't it. Same thing for DOT pedestrian plazas. So like you want to have a list of this. I wrote a blog post about this at a company I worked for like 5 years ago, where I mapped all these and kind of was like, okay, we'll take this like PDF that sucks and turn it into something that like a normal human can look at, but it's still, you know, it's just one piece of the pie, and that's not where we want to go with all this. So simple question. Like I said, I just want to pull out my phone wherever I am. I'm always exploring New York. I'm always having coffee with somebody in some neighborhood that I have never been to before. And I want to just say, what's near me right now? And that's the kind of simple premise of the app. It'll locate you and then show you a bunch of pins on the map, and you can click on them and see what they are. And then it'll also let you like navigate to them. Okay, so tell you a little bit about the journey. So this is last September. I work at Mapbox. We're a general, you know, we're a mapping platform. So a lot of the apps in your pocket already are using, if you have maps in them, they're either using us or Google Maps or Apple Maps probably. But we have a new Flutter SDK that came out a couple years ago. So if you don't know what Flutter is, it's actually a technology stack that allows you to build for both Android and iOS at the same time with one code base, which is cool because it solves the problem of, hey, I just released this app, and then everyone, half the crowd goes, oh, when are you going to release the Android version? When are you going to release the iPhone version? So this lets you just knock them both out at once, which was fun. I'm not a mobile developer, right? I've been a web developer for a long, long time. I've been a map builder for a long, long time, but had no idea what I was doing getting into this, but I had to write documentation for it. So I had to follow the hello world. I had to kind of, you know, read the instructions that the engineers had left and try and make this documentation better. And in so doing, I was making a map in a mobile emulator, and I needed some data to put on that map. And of course, I went to New York City Open Data because that's where I came from. And I was like, I'm going to use the Parks data set. So I'm happy because I always take these little like GIFs and put them in Slack. So I was able to pull this one up, and this is like the very first time I got this working. So this is the earliest like video of this app, and it was just green dots for all the parks. And I was like, oh my God, it's a mobile app. It's cool. Which is great. It's great like to run a mobile app in an emulator, but it's not real until it's like published. And that's a whole different animal, like is like running the thing and building the code and then actually getting into the app stores. And I started to basically be like, you know, I think I might be able to actually like make a mobile app, right? Like it's so, and as a web developer, I have to say, like, man, we have it so easy. Like any idiot can just throw whatever the hell they want on GitHub pages, or you know, you can just put anything up and just buy a domain name. But man, the app stores are like a different animal, and like they have to review everything. And but it was fun. It was like, I'm up for this challenge. Let's do it. So lots of help from ChatGPT. This wouldn't have been possible for me. Like I said, I think knowing the kind of mechanisms of how all this stuff works and coding in general was a huge help. But then it's just like learning a whole new language that's strongly typed and how to actually get it running on both sets of emulators. All that stuff was just, hey, ChatGPT, how do I do this? And it was just like, oh, you're on a roll. Here, do all these steps, and and it just started. It progressed so fast, and I was like, oh my god, I can't believe like I might be able to actually pull this off. Okay, so I have a Firebase database. I'm using Mapbox tiling service, and that's where basically I have to send the whole data set up to our infrastructure, which turns it into map tiles so that it can be downloaded into the map. Then I was like, okay, so I consolidated all these data sets together. So I normalized them a little bit, but basically meant like chopping off a lot of the goodies that came from the open data sets, unfortunately, just so I could have a kind of, because Parks has like full lists of amenities, and then the other ones, like I just showed you, are just like all I get is an address that I pulled out of some PDF. So now I'm in the business of like data improvement. So I did this and not manually, but like literally ran 2,000 points through ChatGPT and prompted it, and man, it came back with some really awful descriptions. And I'm telling you this because like I ran the script. And then I cleaned up the prompt and I ran it again. And I swear I spot checked. Like 20 or 30 of these. And I was like, sweet, we got it. And then like the very next day, like I found out like 80% of them had like the wrong borough in the description, or were just like complete hallucinations, and like describing a concrete triangle as like a lush, lush inviting space, for urban relaxation or whatever. So there's still a lot of these whimsical descriptions in the app. And that prompted, I need a feedback system so people can flag things that are wrong and then I can fix them. So yeah, I became very determined to see this thing through and getting, whatever a minimum viable product was, so I could get it launched out into the app stores, and, it worked out. So I put this post on LinkedIn. I found test flight users. You have to actually test. Android is actually more strict. So you actually have to like have 30 people or something sign up before it'll let you publish it for real. So I had to, it was easy to find iOS people for some reason, but like I was like really struggling to try and recruit more Android users to get over that threshold. And then at some point in January, I was ready. So yeah, the next thing I was like, okay, I've got a name, I've got a type, I've got a sometimes crappy description. I hadn't visited all these sites, but I needed photos next because I think, it was just boring. And I was like, okay, I want photos so that like I can actually share the spaces I like and people can start uploading these. So I added that. So I'm building out more backend infrastructure. And then now I come up with this problem. So like people start using it. I have some testers and some users, and I'm getting all this feedback. The feedback just gets dumped into a Google form, like spreadsheet. And, I have it set to like a personal Slack. So I get Slack messages, and then I'm just like, man, sometimes, some days I'll get like 10 or 15 pieces of feedback, and they're like, the description's wrong or the pin's in the wrong place. And man, every single night I'm like, my kid goes to bed, my wife goes to bed, and I'm like pulling up my admin panel, and like, they all require research. I have to go pull up Google Maps. I'm sitting in a couch in Brooklyn, and I'm like, I don't know anything about this like obscure space in Queens. So I'm like researching it, I'm like Googling it. And yeah, so then that prompted like, okay, now we need like proper like data editing, right? So that's the latest feature that I just built. But anyway, this is my image moderation panel. So I want to show like I have a little admin panel where if you submit an image, it'll go into the app, but it'll say like pending approval until I mash one of these buttons, and then it like changes something in the database, and then that'll be live in the app. So you should totally check it out and like submit some photos. Nobody's abused this yet, but I made the reject button in case people start spamming. Okay. Yeah, so the user feedback, again, it's like just built a text input and like asked ChatGPT, like, I don't want to set up a database for this. And he was like, oh, I'll just use a Google form. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So they end up in this Google form, and then I just go through and update them manually and say, I deleted this thing, I updated this thing. So very manual at this point. But man, it takes a lot of time. So just this last weekend, in preparation for this talk, because I knew a bunch more people are going to use it after this, hopefully, I built full-on data editing, right? And I also added these amenities, which a bunch of people have been asking for. So a lot of people have been giving feedback, and like I'm trying to meet that need. Again, I don't have time for this, so I'm like doing it when I can. But I was particularly proud of this cool little like pin map thingy, because this is not a widget that exists that you can just install as open source software. I just built it, and I was really proud of it. So anyway, I get a cool little diff of the data. So basically, you have full data editing privileges, and you submit a JSON object to me. I diff it with what's actually in the database, and then I get to hit approve or reject. So again, this is like a really just crappy web app that I set up to do this. It's very insecure, but yeah, it's working. So like I put that out. I guess I shipped the new version, earlier this week, like on Monday or Tuesday, and like I've gotten 3 or 4 real world submissions so far. So hopefully some of you in this room will do it and contribute. A gentleman named Matt Wing found me from one of my early LinkedIn posts and was like, he started this group he started an Instagram account called hack_NY, and his goal is to like share lots of free stuff for New Yorkers. So he's gonna do like free tax prep and free counseling and whatever, but he was very well aware of POPs and was gonna promote the web map, and then he heard that I was making a mobile app and he was really excited by that. So he's been helping to promote it before it was even launched. And I would even say like, I probably would have lost interest in this over the holidays when it got cold and everything gets lonely and dreary and you can't go out into the world anymore. But he was just like, I'm gonna start promoting this in February, so you better get it onto the app stores before then. And I was like, okay, thanks. That was the kick in the butt that I needed. That's me hanging from a park jungle gym doing a weird interview. So it's kind of embarrassing, but check it out. This one was also funny. This, pretended to be kind of a loner, crazy guy, hanging out in parks, but it's actually like his friend. But they're doing some really interesting creative stuff to promote it. He also then got in touch with reporters, and I was like, come on, dude, I don't have time for this. So, this is great. It was a piece in the Gothamist, and we actually met at one of the privately owned public spaces down in the financial district, and she interviewed us and talked about, why I made this app. And, I think it worked out really well, and that was a couple weeks ago and got a bunch of users. So, and now I'm getting a lot more feedback. So again, I don't have time for this. Okay. So an interesting thing I want to point out, right, is that, Google, when you pull out Google Maps out of your pocket, it's showing you, wise people will say like building maps is really deciding what not to show, right? Because you can show a billion points of interest on this one slice of New York City, right? But on a general purpose map like Google Maps, like they're going to highlight, like some things look green and those look inviting like parks, but they can't show you everything. So purpose-built maps for a reason, are thematic and can show you one thing. So this is what the public space footprint, according to me and my data set right now, looks like in Lower Manhattan. Brooklyn Bridge Park, I think this one was interesting because like it's actually many different sites and they all kind of have their own flavor and name. If you go to the website, it actually lists them out as like separate spaces. So that was my cue to like, I'm gonna make a separate point for each of these, but I have to use my discretion at some point because, is Pier 1, like Pier 1, Pier 1 is Pier 1, but like there's the Granite Prospect and then there's like, there's a park over there. So that could also be 12 different pins if I wanted it to be. So I don't know, like what, you should propose it in the feedback if you think one is notable enough to warrant a pin. And we're doing collaborative data management. This is what it's all about. Hoyt Street Garden, this is one I stumbled on the other day that looks like a community garden, but it's absolutely not. It's just, it's an L-shaped lot with a church, and the church, like in the 70s, decided to make it public space. And it's, it has even like signs to whoever in this like in-group that has access to it. The signs say, here are the rules for opening the park, and like leave the gates all the way open. And it's really interesting, but I found it by accident. It's not in any of these open data sets, right? It's just there. So I had to stumble upon it and immediately added a pin for it in my map. So now it's there. So this is how kind of, a lot of things that are not tracked by any government agency definitely are open to the public, even if not by any legal term, but because somebody decided that they should be. And those belong in the app too. So if you find any of these, please report them and I'd love to add them. This is one I showed to the reporter when we were up here. It was like, if you look at how this is represented, this is Google Maps, not my map. If you look at Google Maps, you would have no idea if you were walking down either of these streets that this thing, which is way up above eye level, above street level, even exists. And if you miss the 12-foot wide staircase to go up to it, you just won't find it. And like this is kind of, I just wanted to kind of show like, you think everything green on Google Maps is a place you can go, but like a lot of them just don't show up. So this is kind of an interesting representation. So I've also been archiving a lot. So like I said, there's a lot of points that came through in the open data sets that they're just not like notable enough to be in an app for like a normal person to use. So this is one that has a name. You can actually search for this on Google Maps, called Arbor Place. Why does it have a name? I don't know. I'm sure it's on Google Maps because it was in a data set somewhere in the same way it made it into my app, but I now have the power to say, no, I don't think this really belongs in here. It's not notable. It's not attractive. So it's great. It's great to walk by. It's great that it's green and not just concrete, but you can't really use it. So that's my call on like what belongs in a public space app. A lot of these showed up also, where these are in the parks data set, where they're these kind of malls that have, you know, greenery and may have plantings and things like that, but they're not really spaces you can use. So I've been taking these out as well. Community gardens, I remember talking about these in planning school and having an opinion about them, but like, I don't think I've ever felt welcome to a community garden, except for the one time I was invited to a solstice party at one, which was weird. And it was great. Once I was invited and I came in, we had a good old time, but I felt like everybody walking by seems like there's a party in here that they're not invited to. So then I don't want to cast a blanket statement about them. I think a lot of them are much more inviting and also have like some seating areas. So it's not all business. It's not all planting. So I think it's hit or miss, and I didn't remove all of them. I've just been, as I stumble upon them in my personal life, when I walk around, I will make a call on whether I think that they are inviting to me, and usually they're not. They're just locked up. So that's it. So I just walk right by it. Anyway, I would love, you probably have opinions, but I would love to hear them. And if you think I did it wrong, you know, propose one, and I would love to add it. So features I would love to add. People have been asking for favoriting because they want to just flag the ones that they like. So that should be easy enough. I just have to find time to build it. And like I said, I don't have time for this. 311 reporting I really want to do. I think that'll be interesting. Since I've had this in my pocket, even before it was released, I've been everywhere I go, just, you know, I pull it out and I'm like, what's nearby? And I found waterfront public access spaces in Staten Island. They're just straight up forgotten about. They're just locked up. Like nobody knows about them. And this is what I hope. I hope like thousands of people will, you know, discover these spaces and know that they are supposed to be open to the public and hold someone accountable. And the only way you can do that is through 311. I think it was big news a few years ago when 311 actually created like a complaint type for POPs, because I think that didn't exist before like 2018 or something like that. There's no equivalent for like waterfront public access areas. And I'm curious if they would even know where to route that if you complained about it. But I think with a little bit of doing, I can kind of make these kind of automated 311 reports, or at least fill out the form for you or something like that. So I'm working on that. Reviews, yeah, I don't know if I want to go there because I don't think we have the critical mass to have that really be valuable. So linking out to Google, most of these things exist in Google Places and probably even have better pictures. So I might probably just want to link out to that. Filtering is a no-brainer. I just added all the attributes, so you can add like this place has seating, this place has swings and playgrounds. So once there's a critical mass of that, then filtering will work. But until then, I don't think it will. Search, I am working on like right this second. I don't have time for this. Recent activity near you. So I would love, you know, right now you have to sign in, like it makes you sign in order to submit photos and to submit data edits. But I'm not really doing anything with your like account other than knowing who you are when you submit this stuff. So I can build in social features like letting you know that, you know, Maxwell updated a photo at this place, you know, 2 days ago or whatever. I don't know. If anyone wants that, let me know. But no one's asked for it. I just think it would be cool. Yeah, gamification, contributor rank. So kind of like, you know, I would love to be able to open it. Maybe it's just an admin thing, but I would love to be able to open it and just be like, you know, this is the recent activity. Like 20 people submitted photos. These people submitted data edits. We can kind of see where there's clusters of activity. And then, yeah, lastly, like there's lots of open streets and other things that are like seasonal or even just for like a day or a weekend. That would take a whole lot more work to kind of figure out all the timing and planning for that, but it'd be really cool to show those in the app. Okay, community side. Like again, I built this over the winter. It was cold and dreary outside, and I'm like looking at all these spaces that I want to be walking around in when it's warm. It's like finally warm this weekend because it's like we went from winter straight to summer, so I'm like ready to get out in the world. yeah, maybe set up a Discord server, maybe set up some meetups for people who are interested. I don't know. I'm not going to do any of this stuff. I don't have time. But like, if I can gather some like support, maybe we could start doing this stuff. I already started building a web version. Don't have time for this, but maybe it'll come out soon. It's a great thing. Flutter actually works for Web 2, but like Mapbox's thing doesn't support it just yet. So I have to build that as a separate app. So again, I'm faced with the same problem that I was like happy to get around the first time, but now I have the same problem where I have 2 code bases for the same project. Would love UI, UX design help. Seriously, it's mediocre. Like mediocre, I just copy like designs I like, but I'm not a designer. So if anybody has mock-ups for what this could be and wants to contribute, that'd be awesome. Flutter developers, data cleaning, I don't know. Again, like I dread even putting the slide up because I don't have time to manage if anyone was even interested in helping. But I'll make time. And then lastly, open the data, ironically, because I haven't, again, it's just all this is overhead. So I find myself up here making excuses. I will open this data. I will make the code open source, but I don't have time for this. So that's where I'm at. Thank you. I would love to hear some questions. But yeah, try the app. Let me know what you think. Thanks for listening to my story. Questions? Go.
Are you currently handling potential malicious users entering whatever data?
Yeah, so nobody has, basically the writable table in Firebase is just kind of a scratch pad. And then I have a process where I showed the diff up here and I compare what they wrote and then I hit approve and then it will actually write to the main table or main collection, sorry. Yeah.
I mean, you might have like a spam filter or something.
I think that would be a good problem to have spam, but like, data editing has been out for a week and I've gotten like 4 submissions. So, someday, if it becomes a problem, I'll solve it.
I'm curious because you're on my
That's a recurring theme.
Have you been thinking about how to eliminate the Aruba process on the last edit things that you've updated on Monday?
Sorry, what do you mean by eliminate that?
Well, you're on the other side and then had you
Yeah.
panel approving everything by hand, right?
Oh yeah.
I'm having a similar problem.
Okay.
Many times.
No,
Yeah.
sorry to correct that. What if there's enough users that submit the saying like, yes, this is a community garden, it's never open.
Oh.
And it's 3 people submitted, I don't have to approve.
Again, same good problem to have, but like, there's only 200 users and there's probably 0 that care about that garden. So, yeah. So anyway, what came to mind when you mentioned that was that I think it would be cool to have like someone's in charge of Brooklyn, someone's in charge of Manhattan. So I can delegate these like admins or you could even adopt ones that are nearby you. And if I vet you somehow, again, I don't have time to vet you, but like if you could like adopt a section of spaces and adopt them like in real life, which means you can do some things out in the real world, but also just adopt their data a little bit. That might be interesting.
Have you thought at all about using like libraries that have outdoor spaces involved with them? Like, I know there's like libraries in Midtown that have like rooftop, garden-y stuff going on, and might be like something like that.
Yeah, I would say there are definitely people have given feedback identifying new spaces, and I will just sit down and add them. So again, it's like they all require research, so it's my own decision of whether this is like notable or public enough to make it into the app. But that's already happened many times, and I stumbled upon one. There's the Polanski Shakespeare Center in Brooklyn, if you're aware of that, and it has this like great plaza with seating outside. It's not in the POPs data set. I think it's a POPs, but I don't know. But I added it, so I made it miscellaneous. Actually,
Do you think the POPs data is like in terms of, because sometimes they'll just like rebuild certain areas where like the POP basically can go away at some point?
that I can't comment on. I have no idea. That's what I mean. Like, I think actually it's a really interesting point on the open data side is that like I have no pipeline to continue pulling in open data for this stuff. And this is now its own data set. It's got a mind of its own. I've added all these descriptions. I've cleaned up. One of the things with the POPs is like the city planning data puts the pin in the middle of the property, or maybe in the middle of the building. And I was on foot the other day in Williamsburg, and there's actually a pops that's like 2 pops, and they're on the 2 corners of the lot. And I was like, okay, this needs to be 2 pins because that's what a human needs. So I changed it and added it. So those are the kind of examples where like it's really one way from the open data. Now this has got a mind of its own, and I need the community to help maintain this, and then hopefully I can put it back out for whoever else wants to do anything with it.
As someone who's worked in like the public sector and then the private sector, you're obviously pulling data from open data and like annotating it with like opinionated, this is technically a park by the Parks Department, but it's not usable. Like the usable is the annotation. Like, how do you envision a world where like private citizens can like add to the New York City Parks data? It would be like, this is actually deemed usable versus not.
I mean, I think where this goes is that when I'm ready or more comfortable with it, I think like that's on them, right? That's on them to say this is a valid source of information. I'd be very skeptical that certain folks in government would even entertain that, because it's the same. It's the Wikipedia and the OpenStreetMap problem, right? They're like, who made this? And at the end of the day, like, who made it doesn't matter. It's like humans made it in government. Humans made it. It's like you're a government employee and you wrote these lines into a database. Somehow that makes it more authoritative. I mean, I guess it is, but like, no, but like there's the truth, right? There's what's right eventually. So I would love to see, that eventually, this becomes like it can go back the other way. Like I was just saying, like this was a one-way hoovering of open data, and now it has a mind of its own. Eventually, maybe it could go back in. That would be cool.
Speaking of old tree maps, have you considered just updating that and using that data?
Yes, I have. So I don't have time for that. I'm not against it. I think it's a great idea. I know, I showed Noel Hidalgo this, and he was just like, we spent all this time updating like the crosswalks in the parks in Greenpoint where he lives, and there's so much. Yes, it's on my mind. It's something I would love to do.
I don't know if this is outside the scope of what you're doing, but had you considered linking like events at all? Because I know a lot of times like they'll have movies in the park, they'll have concerts. Some of that is on the park's website. Other times, like it's like there's probably some of that data that could come outside of government too for people that are using different spaces.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
It's a great idea. I think each one of them has a URL, and that was important to me because I'm shooting myself in the foot because I made them all have a URL, and then like the next day I was like, they should have 2 URLs or like 5, and I didn't build it that way, and now it's a pain. So you get one URL right now, and a lot of the parks ones, most of them go back to some canonical page for that space on the Parks Department, which is cool. And that's why I said, so yeah, I think that's probably the best conduit for it for now, because I don't have a data science team to like manage all that. But yeah, I think it's a great idea. I think I'll add to that. It's really interesting that like, what was this? Oh, I think I just lost it. Yeah, I lost it. Part. Who had a question? Go.
So you built quite a few of these multi-focus maps. They're passable.
Yes.
And there's you see something like this type of mobile app, something that a government approves my case someday, or is it? You tell what's your dance?
So I get the example I showed at the beginning was that like the map we built in-house in order to share something with the world was focused on a policy area, right? Was we should have, we should force people doing waterfront development to make public space. And that creates its own little data set. And there's, a small team at city planning that like cares about that program. And the program is good. The program is a good thing, but like, how do you translate that into something useful for the citizens, right? Like the spaces are useful for the citizens, but the information exhaust of this program isn't thinking about anything else, right? I think that's kind of where I was heading with this. Is that like, sorry, that's the thing I lost. I show categories and colors that are kind of related to agencies, and you're like, oh, isn't that the same thing? But at some level, like you need to have it's like knowing that where they are is great and using them is great. But, you know, if I were to add that through on one integration, it's like at some level we need to know who's accountable for this space, right? So that's why there's a little bit of that, but it's not the focus. It's not like you must be aware of this program area that this one agency focuses on. And I kind of wanted to show everything all in one place. That I don't know, I went on a tangent. I don't know if I answered your question.
You know, in like you're coming at it from the consumer side.
Yes.
And somebody is generating some stuff.
Yeah. No, sorry, that was your question, was like, why doesn't the government do this themselves? And like, yeah, the answer is because like there's no program. Sorry, there's a public space czar.
Yeah.
So I haven't talked to this person, but I hope this gets enough attention for me to talk to this person. But yeah, I think that's why I guess the answer is yes. Most of the time where these are maintained is in small program areas that we'll never think about the big picture because that's not how we structure our government. Yeah.
Thank you for this talk, by the way. I know that this app was like built somewhat around your experiences interacting with New York City Public Space, but I'm curious if having this as a resource for yourself has changed at all now how you're interacting with New York City in general. And then like kind of two-part question, going out from yourself, do you have a hope for how people will eventually like use this app, or like what will come out of this more long term?
Yes. So to answer the first question is that like, so my wife rolls her eyes and my daughter half rolls her eyes, but then now that I've added data editing, she like wants to use the phone. So she's back into it again. But yes, everywhere we are now, it is like what's nearby. And it takes me down streets I would not have otherwise walked down, right? I'm walking down Fifth Avenue, and if I go down this side street, there's a Pops I can go check out. A lot of times they're very underwhelming, but it's like, that's the hope, is that like, man, it'd be cool if like, you know, 24 people like knew about this thing today and went to go have lunch there, or just kind of take it over, right? And just be like, this is neglected, and like, I don't want to be the first one to walk into this empty like concrete rectangle in Manhattan, but if there's if there's 10 other people in there and they're sipping lattes and having fun and talking, that's cool. You know, the guerrilla urbanism side of it would be like, bring some chairs, bring a potted plant, and start like making it, you know, something that is for us. So that's one hope. But I think the same hope would just be like, yeah, like hopefully this gives people a reason to venture somewhere they would not have otherwise ventured, and observe and learn something, see something that, you know, is meaningful to them. Yeah. One more?
You know the Sisla, the art gallery app?
I think I've heard that. Yeah.
I'm thinking about it because it's really, I use it similar to, but use space for this, which is like I'm wandering around, you know, doing up top it, see it out. And recently, and so like structures you're walking around, listening, right?
Yeah.
And recently I'm wondering where the data came from, like who's got this listing of all the shows that's, you know, and it thought it's pretty aggressively curated.
Yeah.
And it's making me think of this data set that somebody has spent hard investing and then thinking about, like, is this sort of writing, this is doing what I want for my users. What do you think the right scale for that kind of thing is? It turns out it works for New York City, I guess, on some level. The think get too much for it, but not.
Yeah.
How much smaller, like, what?
So this is interesting, right? Because I know just from, I've lived in New York for over a decade now. I put down roots here. I just knew there's so many people that I actually know that I was like, I know they'll love this, and they're using it. A lot of them I ran into today for the first time because I've been locked up in my apartment all winter. But yeah, I know there's enough of a community of like urbanist nerds or public space nerds or people who just love to walk around that are going to love this. So I was like, that's cool. Even if I'm just building it for them, that's fine, because I'm building it for me also. I looked at I had downloaded every Finder app I could find, right? Lots of bathroom apps that all suck. There's one called Play Scout, which is a playground finder, but it's like global. And you know, I took a lot of like UI and UX design inspiration from these things, but I was like, some of it, they were just missing. Some of them were like, Play Scout was just missing stuff because you could tell where there was like a pocket of people who were interested in maintaining data for that place, and then everything else was just neglected. And I'm like, hopefully there's enough critical mass in New York that people can download this and we'll start, you know, to get a better feel for this stuff. So yeah, I don't think you can. Yeah, could we say make this public space app extend to the whole planet? Like, I don't know. That just seems. It seems like there's a community here around this. I think is where I was going with that first statement, and like they'll find this and they'll probably like it.
Do you worry that that'll like serve the land equity in terms of
Sure. That's why I was saying like maybe we can do data jams and like go out on little field trips and like go take pictures of these things. That would be fun. Or maybe people could organize that on their own because that doesn't really require me. That would be neat. But yeah, I do think like you can already see that. Like when I see the feedback come through, I know there's one person. I don't know who most of these people are because I just see their username, and if I wanted to, I can go look up. Yeah, I can see email addresses, but I don't have time. I've never actually gone in to look. But you can see, I can see the track somebody's making as they walk around, and they're submitting photos, and I'm like, oh, that's pretty cool. But like, you know, I do the same. I'm training for the Great Saunter right now, so each training walk is like a connect the dots of public spaces for my app. So I'm like submitting photos, but it's just where I happen to walk that day. The ones that are right near me, I live near Times Plaza or in Park Slope, and like those all have really great data. But that's so.
Where do you see the most feedback coming? Like in what areas of the city?
No idea. Yeah, I don't know. Honestly, like most of the feedback has just been like your descriptions are terrible. And this is actually fun because I would take the description, I would go back to ChatGPT and manually type in like describe Times Plaza in Brooklyn, and it would like give me the thing, and I would paste it back in, and I was like, this won't work. So I built a button where like I can actually just click the button and it will overwrite in my editor form a new description, and I can just, if it sucks, I just mash it again, and it's great. So I added a little automation there to try and get it better. And now that I have full data editing, I will go to one of these spaces and pull up and see what I wrote and like just start changing it. I just did it for the one right out in front of this building this morning, like on my way in. So it's fun.
To follow up, I guess since that's what
Isa, what does geographic at where you see more feedback coming from? Like, is there pockets of like the city that they're not getting any like
feedback from.
I wouldn't say that at all. I think everywhere, yeah. Every borough, like lots of things in Staten Island, lots of things in the Bronx and Queens, everywhere. So much engagement. Thank you all for coming to this talk.
Sorry, one more.
Yeah.
I know this started off as like a simple idea for you to explore public areas and their where they are. But I guess like for you, where you envision it should be, or maybe evolve, maybe it's like wherever you see.
Where do I envision it? I mean, I think it's just one day at a time. Like the feature, like I can add new features in a couple of sittings. You know, my kid goes to bed and my wife goes to bed. I like stay up for a few hours and code. If you do that a few times, you can ship a new feature. So you know, the data editing was like a real reaction to, you know, there is interest in this, but like I want to give people the ability to just write whatever they want instead of saying this is wrong, right? So I hope it will. Yeah, I hope if it maybe it will become popular enough to be adopted by a nonprofit or some public good group that wants to like sponsor it and put some money in it. So then we can have like a data science team or have some like UX design work. Maybe they can also promote it. I don't know. That would be interesting. Maybe the government would be interested in it. So I don't know. One day at a time.
I'm curious if you connected with the foragers in New York City. I can't look for the app. We might know it, but it's it's like somebody might know it. It's like what is edible in the city. I think there's an app. There's a bunch of organizers around it.
Oh, fun.
Excursions around the city. It sounds like it could be integrated really easily.
You mean like eating berries and stuff, or like?
Anything, you know, like apples on the street, like in public, basically like anything that's edible in public spaces. They're trying to map it on in an app.
Okay.
And no, say what? Sanobi.
Okay, yeah, I'll check it out.
I believe there's a map of it. Similarly, like user, collaborated, and there's quite a bit of activism around it in person.
Okay, I'll check it out. That's great. Thank you. Did you have a question?
Yeah. I guess this has kind of come thematically a couple times, just around like the community aspect. I was just wondering if there were any spaces, communities, events anything like that where you either, I mean, I saw you posted on LinkedIn, where you either like post stuff, send out updates, or consume stuff and like get inspiration in this type of like,
For the app?
well, just in this interest area of like people who care about like community data, public spaces. I know that's kind of maybe a broad question, but it's just like I love coming to School of Data, but then it's like once a year.
Yeah.
It's like gratification on it.
No, my answer was going to be School of Data is probably it for like the people that care about this data and what you can do with data like this. No, I don't. So I mean, I did all this sitting on my couch over the winter, and like I'm anxious to get out into the world a little bit now that it's like hot out. But I haven't done any of that. So like I even wrote a blog post that I haven't published yet, and like when the WNYC story or the Gothamist story dropped, like there was nowhere for them to link to, so they linked to the LinkedIn post, and it from like earlier, and everyone was like, well, when's it going to be released? I'm like, it's already out, but the LinkedIn post said that I was looking for testers. So anyway, I need a website, I need a page, I need a Discord server. I don't know. So one day at a time.
I'm not a very technical person, but I'm wondering, like, if somebody in another city wanted to do something like this, is there something you could share with them as like a kind of base for them to be able to adopt and put in their own data sets?
You mean like yes, so the source code for sure. It's not public now. It actually was up until a couple weeks ago, but I realized I in my haste, published some secret keys that I shouldn't have published. So those are no longer online. Anyway, it will be eventually, I promise. But yeah, it's the kind of thing where like, it's not just something you download and use, right? You would need another software engineer or developer over there to do it. It's not purpose built for that. So there's a lot of hard coded stuff that wants my icons and my types and all that sort of stuff. But I have thought more broadly about like, most of the apps that do this sort of thing are all the same, right? Like it's user feedback and then like one data set with point data in it. It would be cool to kind of standardize that a little bit so it's easy, more portable. But like, again, those are way beyond the scope of what I'm thinking about for this project. So.
You mentioned at the beginning this started because you're writing documentation related to your employer.
Yes.
Have you ever, has the conversation come up to make it part of your day job or your employees?
Well, yes, it has come up. I've been trying to find, like I just showed you guys the little like pin editor that I built for like dragging a pin around. And I should turn that into a module, or at the very least turn it into a code example that I can put on our documentation site, because it's a common thing that people need, is a pin data editor, right? So yeah, lots of little snippets like that where I can turn them into like useful developer resources. But we don't have a whole lot of like traction behind Flutter right now, and there's not a lot of energy put behind it. So this is the thing. I have to manage 7 different SDKs and JavaScript 2 JavaScript libraries and all of our backend APIs. So we have to kind of I've never been able to put a lot of emphasis on any one particular product line. And anyway, that's the excuse I can give you. But like, yes, eventually a lot of this stuff will make it through. If not naming the app itself, a lot of the concepts that I'm learning are going to definitely make it back out into our developer resources. Yeah. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much for coming. Thank you, Devin Balkin, for showing up at the end. Download the app. Let me know if you like it.